All right. So just ask Jeff to come back for a final time.
Okay, I appreciate your questions and comments. They are all vital questions that we grapple with all the time in the United States. So let me cover some ground because you mentioned a number of important points. The first is that with regard to the massive mobilizations initiated by the Black community and their demand to defund, disarm, and disband the police, there's been a lot of discussion on that question. Everyone who is serious about politics knows that you're not going to disband, disarm, and defund the police, the central repressive apparatus in the United States today. So how can we pose the question? The only answer is that to challenge the nature of the police requires a massive independent organization of the oppressed themselves. In the 60s, when we were very close to Malcolm X, we championed his idea of forming an independent Black political party. We were members of Malcolm's Organization of African American Unity, and as you know, his life was cut short before he could embark on that project. But with the organization or type of organization that Malcolm advocated, you could see the beginnings of an outline of a militant, organized, disciplined force in the Black community to protect itself, to defend itself against racist cops, to organize the community to advance the interests of Black people. So we've always championed that. What has been lacking in the United States is an organizational form of the Black Lives Matter movement. It is just a Black Lives Matter movement. The movement for Black Lives has been funded by the Ford Foundation, which gave 12 or 13 chapters $500,000 each. And if you check their website, they're mobilizing to get out the Black vote for the elections. They had a Black political convention online that attracted thousands of people, and the central thesis was basically get out the vote for the Democrats. They had a March on Washington led by Democrat Al Sharpton, and the central thesis was vote Democrat, virtually every speaker. The need for a break with Democratic Party politics, electoral politics, has never been greater. And the forces are in motion that begin to think that way. But if you are going to try to even imagine a force to defend the Black community, independent of, controlled by, organized by, you have to begin to see the formation of an independent Black organization. We used to say in the 60s and 70s, and now again, Black control of the Black community. In those days in New York, it was Black and Puerto Rican control of their own communities. This, in our view, is an aspect of the struggle of oppressed people for self-determination, of their right to control their own lives, free from the racist attacks that are inherent in white racist capitalist ruling class America. But unfortunately, we haven't seen even the beginnings of an expression of a break. That's the music of the future. And it's the same thing with the Labor Party. We have this contradiction, which is partially resolved when we said the anger that exists deep in the hearts and minds of the American people at their decreasing ability to control their own lives, jobs, housing, homes, mortgages, and everything else, and mass mobilizations is a contradiction of our time. Well, the contradiction was resolved with millions in the streets, but not with an independent organization coming out of that. We still have hope that most oppressed, as we learned from Lenin and Trotsky on the national question, where they advocated the right of self-determination for Russia's prison house of nationalities, for its forcibly incorporated oppressed nationalities, the right to secede, the right to control their own lives, or to stay in the framework of what was then the most progressive revolutionary formation in the world, the USSR. Second, the question of why can't the left get together? Believe me, everybody asks the same question. And it's never going to happen, except with minor examples. We've had groups who we fused with who joined Socialist Action, but they're all small groups. The real way that groups are going to come together is through the United Front. And the United Front is qualitatively different than setting up an electoral front, where the whole left gets together and picks a candidate and runs. In the electoral process, when the left is able to come together, as we have often brought it together in United Front mass actions against the climate catastrophe, against racism, in defense of political prisoners, in opposition to imperial war, where we literally organized demonstrations of 300,000. These United Fronts were democratically organized. We had mass conferences of 1,000 people. We voted on the demands democratically with all tendencies welcome to participate. We organized everything from march routes to finances. We agreed with what we would do with the money we collected, and it was significant. In some of these mobilizations, we collected hundreds of thousands of dollars, paid all of our expenses, mobilized hundreds of thousands of people. In that context, the relations we established with other groups proved to be long-lasting. We built trust in each other. We gave everyone the right to speak and organize and distribute their own literature, but march together on the common demand, self-determination for oppressed people, against the US wars at home and abroad, defend Palestine, end all aid to apartheid Israel, military, political, and diplomatic. We brought hundreds of thousands of people together for those demands. United Front is a tactic and virtually a principle, in that it seeks to unite the class against the common enemy, and in the crossfire, those who refuse to participate for sectarian reasons are exposed as breaking the unity that is necessary to challenge capitalism in the streets. We, for example, initiated a formation called the United National Anti-War Coalition, which has 125 different affiliates. We march together for self-determination and against the right, against US intervention everywhere in the world. Bring the troops home now. We're successful in that. But if we tried to take those 125 organizations together, which range from pacifists to religious plowshares, people who march on military bases, to the range of political parties, we wouldn't be successful. Other organizations on the left reject the United Front and instead engage in what we call front group politics. They set up a group that they control mechanically, and they ask everybody to participate, but they run the show. That's not our view of the United Front. It's a mass action formation, and we're going to see more of it with the best of the revolutionary fighters leading and demanding that we all come together, not based on trying to meld our conflicting revolutionary socialist politics. In the end, the main differences we have as revolutionaries are whether or not you can support the capitalist candidates or the capitalist politics, or petty bourgeois politics like the Greens in the United States. well-meaning people who try to reform the Democratic Party or encourage a left wing in the Democratic Party. So the United Front is a tactic with two edges to maximize the power of the working class in the street and to expose, not by attacking, but by their absence, those who refuse to come together and fight. When people come together and fight, the long-standing differences will tend to evaporate as the best organizations in the leadership of the mass movement show that they are open to the full inclusion of everyone. And you make friends. That's why Socialist Action has so many friends. That's why I can run for president and have people like Alice Walker support me, the Pulitzer Prize winning poet, or Glenn Ford, the editor of the Black Agenda Report, one of the most prominent Black publications in the country, or Robert Meerpool, or Mumia Abu-Jamal, who spoke at my campaign rally, because they see me not so much for the tiny or aspects of our revolutionary politics that are critical to us, but because they see us as a uniting force in the mass movement. We're a party with a middle name, United Front. We don't spend our time in sectarian diatribes against others on the left. We reach out to everyone to engage them in mass actions. And once again, I'll close on this. The experience of Jeremy Corbyn was important, and the fact that 400,000 or 500,000 people joined the Labour Party. As an outsider, I would say that my hope is that those hundreds of thousands of people who joined the Labour Party to reinvigorate it, to bring in class struggle ideas, did so because they want to fight in the streets. They want to mobilize millions in support of the working class and the oppressed, as opposed to subordinate themselves to getting out the vote, to be a vote Labour Party apparatus that otherwise disappears. The Green Party does not have a political existence anywhere in the United States, in 99% of the cases, outside of the periodic elections. They're an electoral party. Vote for the candidate, and then they disappear. They're not part of any United Front actions, or if they are, it's a tiny exception. Struggle brings out the best in all of us. That's what Corbyn tried to do. Tragically, he backed away from the Palestinian cause, even though he was known as a champion of Palestinian self-determination against the Zionist colonial settler state of Israel. In my opinion, his failure to mobilize masses of people to denounce that charge of anti-Semitism and place the blame on the situation in the Middle East on the Israeli Zionist state and US imperialism, that was his weakness politically, and to fail to mobilize. Why did he lose the support of so many historically labor communities? Because the Labor Party basically bent to the worst prejudices brought out by the Brexit movement. That is, the idea that the immigrants are taking our jobs, as opposed to the ruling class was taking our jobs. To mobilize in defense of those jobs at the point of production is key, in my opinion, to the revival of the Labor Party. Just as, in our opinion, in the United States, there will never be anything resembling a fighting Labor Party that does not fight the bosses at the point of production in alliance with the oppressed, that wins their hearts and minds, as opposed to an occasional electoral machine that spends millions of dollars trying to convince the bourgeois press to give us some coverage. I want to close by saying how much I appreciate being invited by Socialist Democracy. I hope the comrades there get involved in social democracy. We are in the same current inside the Fourth International as is the Socialist Democracy comrades. I'm eternally grateful for John, McAnulty, and especially for his criticism of my mistaken comments on Ireland versus the UK. I don't think I'll ever live that down. Forgive me, comrades. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. And I promise, if I'm elected president, we will set up your comrades in the White House to be our representatives to the Irish people.
Thank you, Jeff. I get my plane ticket right away.
All right, that was a fascinating discussion. So I'd like to thank Jeff. I'd also like to thank the people who participated in the discussion. So as I said at the start of the meeting, I think this is the fourth Zoom meeting we've had on a range of subjects. So we're planning more in the future. I think our next one's going to be on the Green New Deal, which will probably be in October or November. So just anyone who's registered for the meeting will get an email alert about upcoming meetings, and also adverts will be posted on our Facebook page and also on our website. So I'd like to end by thanking people for participating tonight. So I'll just end the meeting there.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.